A happy milestone of note now regarding the Vatican's representative to the U.S., Cardinal Christophe Pierre, turned 80 years old this week. This marks his theoretical time of retirement from official duties, meaning his nearly decade-long stretch as Apostolic Nuncio to the U.S. is coming to an end. A large part of his latest diplomatic assignment consisted of overseeing the episcopal appointments across the United States. But Cardinal Pierre's time in the U.S. was marked by profound division in our country, including the COVID-19 pandemic and nationwide protests. As the Pope's U.S. representative, Cardinal Pierre's agenda was full, from attending Capitol Hill hearings in Washington, D.C., to promoting the late Pope Francis's emphasis on synodality to the U.S. bishops. He helped the faithful foster devotion to the Eucharist as part of the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage and at the U.S.'s 10th National Eucharistic Congress in Indianapolis. Cardinal Pierre traveled and spoke at many Catholic events and conferences in his role as Apostolic Nuncio, including at the New York Encounter. Cardinal Pierre has served as papal nuncio here in the U.S. under 2 different popes and 3 different presidential terms. The French prelate has had to navigate church diplomacy in a way where he guards against being political and remains pastoral. He recently joined me to reflect on his time in the U.S. with this on-the-record interview. Cardinal Christophe Pierre, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Very happy to be with you.
In your role as papal nuncio in the United States during the Francis pontificate, you did accompany the U.S. bishops through some moments of tensions, you could say, between the Vatican and the USCCB. Do you foresee those tensions diminishing with our new pope, or are you already starting to see that now that we have this U.S.-born pope?
Well, this is a difficult question. You know, we have to be very careful when we speak about the tensions between the Holy Father and the bishops. You know, I think the tensions are normal. You know, we are not in a war. I've never seen a kind of war. Sometimes, you know, some people have said the bishops in the United States are at war with the Holy Father. This is not true. You know? I think. I've been 10 years here, and I've been working in 9 countries, you know, for the last 50 years. I would not say that the American bishop is at war with the Holy See or with the Pope. You know, at times, you know, the Bishops' Conference is nearly 200 dioceses, 300 bishops, active bishops. We don't, and with all these retired bishops. So, you know, we have to organize ourselves, we have to work together. Right. At times it's difficult, you know, to understand each other and also to understand, you know, the leadership of the Pope. And, you know, may I say, and that has been my experience, you know, I worked with Pope Francis a number of years since he became a Pope. And for me, Pope Francis has been a magnificent leader. And the reason of my admiration is that his intuitions, his capacity to discern where we are in today's world and to give orientations and directions for how to evangelize the world. So for that reason, being the world what it is, you know, a very difficult one, precisely with the difficulty to transmit, Pope Francis has provoked us all the time. And at times we don't like to be provoked. You know, Pope Francis used to a word, you know, we have to go out of our zone of comfort. Right. Our tendency, all of us, even bishops, you know, to remain in our zone of comfort, to think that we know it all. But, you know, the role of the Pope precisely, and this is the reason why he has been sent by the Holy Spirit, is precisely to help us to go out of our zone of comfort, to take risk, and to discern where we have to go in order to respond to the challenges of the time. And I think the difficulty for many of us bishops, you know, in relation with the Pope, is to understand. At times, people said, you know, for example, the synodal process. What is the synodal process? You know? And many people said, well, we don't know where to go. We don't know how to work together. And the Pope said, continue to work together. Continue to discern. Continue to listen to one another, to listen to the world. This is precisely what Pope Leo will do. You know, he wants to meet the young people, to listen to but also he wants them to listen to him, you know, because he's the leader. So I think the challenges have been at that level.
You have served as Apostolic Nuncio here in the U.S. since 2016, nearly a decade. How would you even begin to characterize these years here in the U.S.? You know, what have you taken away from the church here in the U.S. this past decade, a decade of serving the church that's been marked by pandemic, nationwide unrest, assassination attempts on political candidates and activists, and then there was also the Eucharistic revival. How do you begin to reflect back on what these years were marked by?
Well, this, let's be honest, has been very beautiful years, difficult years, you know, may I say. You know, these years have been full of tensions at times. The tensions come from ourselves at times, you know. The challenge to work together. You know, to live in a very polarized, as we say, you know, it's a kind of, everybody says that, but it is true, you know, a polarized society. Yeah. And to remain faithful to the mission of the church, you know. And the mission of the church is precisely not to reproduce in our church the polarization of the society, but to be a kind of place where we can heal, you know, and help the people to rediscover a kind of unity, which should never be an artificial kind of unity, because, you know, may I say, the process, the church is should enter into a more serene process of education. I think the Eucharistic renewal, revival, as we said, you know, has been a kind of helping people to rediscover what is the center of the church, and the center of our missions is the presence of Christ. And the presence of Christ in our lives, and Christ who gives himself in the Eucharist so that we may be fed and transformed by his presence. At times we forget about that, and we remain, you know, we became, as we said, you know, cultural warriors. So that means instead of contemplating Christ in my life, in your life, and trying to get together, we remain at the level of ideas. So if you don't agree with me, you become my enemy, or I become your enemy. And that, I think, is very dangerous, because even with beautiful ideas, you know, the ideas, Pope Francis always said, you know, and that's one of the 4 principles he gave in the, you know, Evangelii Gaudium, the first document, you know, the reality is more important than the idea. And sometimes we give more importance to the idea, and from idea you have ideology. Right. So we become defenders of ideologies, and we put in the ideology what we like. But we, in the church, we don't fabric ourselves the church. We receive it from God. And we receive the gospel as a gift. But in the ideology, we fabric it. So at times there is this idea which interests me, I put it in my ideology. This one idea, I don't like it, I put it outside. And at times, we become more politicians than the church people.
You've served as nuncio in Mexico and, again, here in the U.S. You've seen the migration story from both sides of the border. Yeah. Can you share your insights on that, and what is your message to the church in the U.S. when it comes to the topic of immigration?
You know, since I've been here, I've been always full of admiration for the role of the church in the field of migrations. And I think it continues, you know, and in this, I've not seen any division, you know. In the church, the bishops are together, and I'm very proud of this church, you know. I think, you know, we should not be afraid, you know, to speak up when it is necessary. Because, you know, we are part of the society, you know, and a society should allow the people to speak up, you know. The question, migration is one of the issues, which is very, very strong one. So it has to be resolved. You know, at times, problems arise because the questions have never been resolved properly. And the role of the politicians is precisely to resolve the problems. Otherwise, they are useless. If they don't resolve the problem, they create problems. And I think, and we, as the church is, the church is made of citizens. And by the way, don't forget that, the Catholic are about 80 million people in the United States, and 40% are recently come from the migrations, right, particularly from South America. So, should we abandon these people or not? Mm-hmm. They are human beings, by the way. And the center of our message is the value of the human person.
Cardinal Christophe Pierre, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Cardinal Pierre tells me when looking back at his time in the U.S., he greatly admires the dedication and enthusiasm of both the Catholic bishops and the faithful here. A happy 80th birthday to His Eminence.